Hello, everybody. Welcome in to my latest live broadcast. Today is the 24th of June. It's Wednesday, and the year is 2020. My name is Kerry Holzman. Thanks for joining me. And yeah, let's just get some things configured here on my side. That looks okay. And we'll give folks a chance to join us here as they receive notifications that everything is up and running. Hello to Bradley Morris and Rick03038. Jim Desposito contributed $2. Hey, Jim, thank you for that and the birthday wishes. KL and Michael Mancini. Tony Wallow, welcome in, Tony. Edwin Ojeda and Glenn's Music. John Paul Jake and Dustin Fuller. Paul Gale, John Doe, Stealth Mode. Hey, guys, welcome in. Yes, there's a part three because obviously the system isn't finished yet. Now, normally I don't film the cable management. It's very, very boring, but it still has to get done. I do have a couple of things in the works, upcoming projects that I can tell you about. One is the completion of the Xenos build. Another is the repair and diagnostic of Threadripper to figure out why is Threadripper so bad. So that's the community build that kind of belongs to all of us. And it's a shame that it just has never, it worked for a little while to be useful and productive, and then it just got finicky again and started acting up. So I'm going to do some major configuration changes on it and see if it becomes usable. And if not, then what I'm going to do is pull the board and chip and replace it with something on the Intel side and make it useful. One of the reasons it's not useful, even when Threadripper is working, is it's too darn loud. So in video production, when I'm live, I don't need the sound of the fans running and ramping up and down constantly. The cooling is extreme that's required on Threadripper, and I've yet to find a quiet cooler. So I've got something in the works for that I'm going to try out. I'm going to give it every chance I can before I ditch it for Intel. The streaming computer, I'm going to have to revisit that. I'm going to probably replace it. Once again, we're back to AMD, we're back to problems. And then the system I sent my friend Ron, I asked him to send me some compatible RAM, something on the QVL list from the motherboard manufacturer that Amazon sells. He sent me 6 links. 5 of them Amazon doesn't sell. They're from third-party sellers. Only one of them is one that Amazon has in stock, $149.99, and it's the Pro RAM. It's like the high-end RAM, and it's really, really tall, which creates potentially other issues with coolers and other hardware, especially in a small case like that. So I've asked him to go back to work, look for some more RAM, pay attention to whether or not it's selling from Amazon or a third party, and to look at Newegg as well. Remembering to myself that if I had built him an Intel system, we would not be going through all this. I get a little I lose some of my confidence when people in the chat room want to sit there and tell me how much opportunity I'm missing with AMD. And I decide, I listen to it and I talk about my past experience with AMD, and I'm like, all right, well, maybe it's time to, give them a fair shake. And I read the reviews and all the focus is on the processor. Nobody really talks about the motherboard, or nobody really talks about the memory compatibility problems. It's like the people who want to talk proudly of AMD don't want to mention any of the potential downside. And it really, really bothers me that people are so myopic and so sold out. When they come on this channel and they call me an Intel shill, they're doing the exact same thing. When you point a finger at somebody, there's 3 other fingers pointing right back at you. So calling me a shill makes you a shill because you're suggesting that there's some other product that's superior. At the end of the day, I'm held accountable, I'm held liable for the reliability of these systems, not only for the fact that they need to turn on and function, but just that anytime anything ever goes wrong in or out of warranty, I'm going to get the call and I have to stop everything I'm doing to handle something that was not scheduled. And that means everything that was scheduled, the schedule gets thrown off. And over time, the gap of what's scheduled gets pushed and pushed and pushed. And so a build I was supposed to do 5 months ago gets pushed in further into the schedule. So when you're running a business, and I want to emphasize this as strongly as I can, if you're not going to do any warranty work, then you can have your personal preferences all day long. But if you're going to be held accountable for the lifetime of that computer, you better pick your parts carefully, because people, the consumer, when they're shopping, they're just price shopping. They don't know reliability. They don't know compatibility issues. They're trusting you, and they're expecting you to give them a good deal because they can buy it somewhere else for less. And again, I want to emphasize that when you're building something for yourself, it's a lot of fun. If you want to go to the park on the weekend and play some sports ball, it's great. It's very enjoyable. But if you sign up for a sports ball team and you've got to be at the park on Saturday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's now an obligation. And while it might start out as kind of fun, right? Now you're playing with a team, and it's a little more competitive, and people are depending on you to show up. At the same time, it's a burden. You've taken on a responsibility. And by taking on the responsibility, it loses that sense of control, that sense of impulsiveness, that I want to go and have some fun. And so most of the high subscribing, popular tech channels here on YouTube are just building for fun. And that's okay. It's really, there's no problem building for fun. It's great. Don't get me wrong. But I think people, many viewers, when they watch my channel, they can't grasp, or they won't grasp. There's a difference between trying to sustain a business with a profit so that you can eat, and doing something that's fun. So I enjoy building computers, don't get me wrong. But I saw some videos last night of some of the most incredible customized computers I have ever seen. And they are very impressive. But they're also an extraordinary display of disposable wealth and disposable time. If these people are making these computers and getting paid a good dollar to make these showcase machines for trade shows and things like that, well, then they're doing it right. But if it's you're watching this video and you're saying, I want one just like that, you are going to invest 4 to 5 times more money than the machine is actually worth in order to get that customized, to have something really, truly unique and different. And you'll probably only have it a couple of years before you replace it. It's sort of like, I have mixed feelings about this, because on the one hand, I'm watching these customized computers, and I know how much time it takes with these open loop custom liquid cooled solutions, along with the modifications that are being done to the case. And there's a real talent there. There's also a ton of money there, and a ton of invested time. There's no way I can be helping customers and take on a project like that and still, do my job. I'm balancing too many things. Something's going to fall. I'm juggling too many things, and something's going to hit the ground. Probably everything's going to hit the ground. So I admire it. I'm watching it and I'm going, wow, that's really amazing quality work. But on the other hand, I look at it and I go, if I was making minimum wage and I was watching that, I'd be kind of offended. Because I think the money you spent on that machine could have bought 5 machines. And I don't know. I mean, it's people's money, and how they choose to spend it is up to them. But boy, talk about rubbing in your wealth. So I get a little when I see that. I'm just like, man, it's like somebody showing off their Ferrari or their Bugatti or their Rolls Royce, and I'm driving a 1972 Datsun B210. And not only do they have this nice car, but then they've customized it. They've chromed out everything in the engine. They've chromed out the bottom of the car. Who chromes out the bottom of a car? You go to a car show, you see a car has got a mirror under it so you can see the detail work that was done underneath the car. Who does that? How can you drive that car and enjoy it? These cases are so beautiful, these computer cases, and the camera close-ups so extreme that there is so much a scratch on the case you will see it. And there wasn't. If there was a mark on any of the bolts to the liquid cooling from the wrench being used a little too aggressively, there wasn't. The amount of detail and care, the cable combs, the amount of time that they set out each cable and just absolutely amazing and extraordinarily offensive. So, for fun, great. For business, not so sustainable. Not for me anyway. So my goal here on this channel, and the reason I bring all this up, is I want to find a little more balance. The business side of things gets very, very serious. You don't want a machine that needs all the, that has RGB and it's all flash and gimmicky. You need an actual production machine that's really reliable so that your customer will come back and order more from you. And the computers I'm building for folks, I'm very proud to say we'll easily get 8 years of life out of them. Nobody's got an Apple, very few people are running an Apple computer more than 5 years. Apple shuts it down whether you like it or not. They abandon it and you have to upgrade. You have to. You don't see Apple users going, well, I liked, the previous version, I like Snow Leopard or whatever. They don't do that. Windows users do that. And I don't know that Windows users fully appreciate that nobody else does that. Apple users don't do that. Linux users don't do that. They don't say, well, I like the previous version of Ubuntu. They don't. I mean, there's always somebody, but generally speaking, they don't do that. And the benefit that you can do that is what makes Windows so special. And a lot of people that say, well, I'm not giving up my Windows 7 were the same people who said they weren't giving up their Windows XP. And those were the same people who said they weren't giving up their Windows 95. They're just late to arrive because Microsoft doesn't force you like Apple does. You have that choice. And it's an unfortunate choice because ultimately what it means is you're getting older and you don't want to be uncomfortable. You like your Windows 7, you're comfortable with it, and you will, human psychology, justify reasons that you don't have to learn anything new or get used to anything new until such a time where you have to. So, well, there are people using Windows 7 still and they say, I'm never going to change. They will have to, eventually. And then when they do change, it's going to be a more extreme change for them, right? Because instead of a gradual step by step by step, they're skipping steps. And it's obviously going to be discouraging. And then when they do it, they'll wish they had done it sooner. Eventually, they'll get there. Once they get comfortable with it, they'll say, this isn't as bad as was made out to be. But look, that's their issue. I don't have to deal with it. It has no impact on me whether somebody wants to use Windows 7 or not. But just be aware that in the world of Apple and Linux, that is not an option. And you really don't hear people talk that way. And so that is something to be proud of. That's something to say, okay, this is why I'm a PC user. And, Apple's switching over to the ARM processors, their own ARM processors, which means they're going to stop supporting the systems with Intel processors. And they haven't said when, but it's coming. Probably within 4 years, I would say, support will end. Even though those systems should last 8 years if you'd have built it yourself and put it on a Windows platform. And you're going to pay top dollar because it's Apple. Food for thought. So I'm going to try and do a little more ridiculous builds from time to time that are going to be for the channel in an effort to attract more viewers, because viewers seem to enjoy frivolous nonsense. So I will do it, and I will enjoy building it. But I don't want those systems. I don't want them in my house. A couple that I'm going to do are very large, very heavy, and will make for an amazing video. But I wouldn't want to have to dust it. I wouldn't want to have to live with it every day. and I wouldn't want to have to work on it. Like if it was a client calling me saying, hey, I have a problem with that extreme custom build you did for me, I would not want to have to go in there and change parts and undo that delicate cable management and redo it. It's just a big investment of time, and it changes it from something I wanted to do, right? I wanted to build it and make the video, to something now I have to do, which is now I have to support it. So I will figure out what I'm going to do with these extreme monsters after I make the videos. I don't have the answer for that yet. And I'm always going to be doing the serious builds that I do for my clients. But I'm going to try to take on less builds for clients. I'm going to cut that in half. The number of builds I've been doing for customers is going to cut in half. Well, I'm going to cut it by a third anyway. And then I will do these nonsense, ridiculous, over the top, stupid builds strictly because I think they're going to get me better view numbers and new subscribers. And I hope once I have their attention that I can explain to them the way I'm explaining to you now, that if you think you'd like to do this for a living, let me show you what you'll probably be doing, which is also still very fun, but you can make money. You can have fun and make money. But when you're having fun and it's costing you money, it's just not sustainable unless you're I don't know, unless you're sitting on a bunch of cash for some reason. So that doesn't really represent most of us. And these extreme custom builds are very expensive, extraordinarily time consuming. And let's face it, most of us cannot afford them. We might, want a Ferrari, but most of us will never own one. The closest we'll get is to watching the video. And so, I'd like my channel to be something you can reach out for. It's something you can obtain. And if you enjoy that and you're considering perhaps now turning that into a career, I'd like you to know what to expect in that career so that you make a good decision. And in that career, if you can make a whole bunch of money that ends up to a point where you can just start making nonsense computers just for the fun of it because you've got that kind of cash, well, there you go. See what I'm saying? So there's the sustainable part and the fun part, and there's the responsibility part and the impulsiveness of what you want to do versus what you have to do. And it's always a constant trade-off, although I'm afraid a lot of people go to jobs they hate because they feel they have no choice. They got bills to pay. And if you enjoy computers, I want to give you a taste of what it's really like to be in the business. And I don't feel that any of the big YouTube channels do that. They just emphasize the hobby. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's all one-sided. Okay, so with that out of the way, I've missed a few contributions and I've missed a few comments to what I've been talking about. So let me take a quick look in here and see what I've missed. Contributions have come in from Ryan One Full, who contributed $5 Canadian. Paul Carroll with $10. He says, hey, I hope all is safe and that you'll have a good 4th of July. And have you tried the new Coca-Cola energy drink? Yeah, I opened one of those up on camera and tried it. Did not like it. Glenn's Music contributes $2 Australian. He says, put a sign up that says, I was laid off by cable management. John Yasuda has contributed $20. He says, have some chicken wings and a Coke on me. Keep up the good work as always, Carrie. Hey, John, thank you so much. Yu Wong has contributed $5. And Chris Keegan has contributed $5. And he says he'd rather have a mint 1972 Datsun B210 over a Ferrari. Well, Chris, I think you are probably not in the majority of people that would agree with you. And then finally, there's a contribution here from Dan Lazaro for $10. He says there's a popular tech YouTuber telling his viewers they don't need virus protection and it's useless. He says Windows Defender is all you need. What are your thoughts on this? Well, Dan, the problem is he doesn't know his viewers. So if somebody doesn't know you, how can they tell you what you need or don't need? I think you can answer your own question there. There are people that are safe drivers and they understand, or they have good practices in place with not clicking on email attachments and links and things like that. probably could get by just using Windows Defender. Nothing wrong with Windows Defender. It's very, very good. It's not the piece of crap it used to be. I like Malwarebytes, the paid version of Malwarebytes, but very rarely does Malwarebytes come up and prevent any viruses. But what it does do is it will pop up and prevent dangerous websites, sites that want to, put some tracking stuff on your computer and stuff like that. And look, if I didn't have Malwarebytes installed, I wouldn't know what was happening. Right? When I bring up a website, the site still comes up just like it always has before. Only this website's putting stuff on my computer, and it's not a virus, but it's definitely not stuff I want. So Windows Defender isn't, alerting me to any concerns. So in that case, does that mean I don't need antivirus? Because, in theory, if you have a virus and you don't know you have it, is there a problem? It's sort of like saying, I'm not going to go to the doctor to get a checkup every year. I'm fine. I don't experience any symptoms. I have no reason to go. And that's some people's attitude. Other people are like, I'm going to go because there might be something going on. There's not everything you can feel. Not everything has symptoms. And if you catch it early, your chance of survival, of beating it, is greatly increased. So if ignorance is bliss, then take that YouTuber's tech advice and be stupid. Close your eyes and ignore the world around you and tell yourself everything is fine. But if you'd like a second opinion, and even that isn't always 100% accurate, but a second opinion shouldn't hurt. There should be no consequence other than $30 a year, I think, for Malwarebytes, which is what, $2 and change a month, which works out to pennies a day for something that if your computer didn't work and you couldn't get online, what would you do? Would you be okay? Would you freak out? Would you panic? Is your computer that important to you, or is your computer a novelty? How many hours a day do you spend on your computer? And what would you do with those hours if your computer was unusable? And do you have the money to fix it? Do you have the time to fix it? Versus $30 for a piece of software. I hope that never pops up, but there's that peace of mind, that reassurance that everything is functioning as it should be. I'm not a fan of faith. I'm really not. I want some scientific evidence proving to me and reassuring me that I'm on the right path. I don't want to follow somebody in the desert for 40 years. I don't want to do that. I want to see a map. I want to see where we're going, and I want a time plan on how we're going to get there. Or I'm not going. That's just me. So clearly, that YouTuber doesn't know me, or they would have realized how foolish they just sounded. So be very cautious of any advice from strangers. I don't know you, so take my advice accordingly, right? I can only tell you how I feel. I can only tell you about me. And if you and I relate, well, that's great. But if you and I don't, well, you're going to have to make decisions on your own. You can't let people tell you how to live your life and tell you what chances to take. At least I can't. You can do whatever you want. I can't do it. Rick Hubbard has contributed £3. Hey, Rick, thank you. And thanks to all of you guys for contributing. William Dawson says hello from Florida. George Ferragia says hello, Carrie. Hey, George. Sherry McFarland joins us. Matt Power and Computer Len. Gabriel Granados. Welcome in, guys. And Philip Musto. Rick says, I'm doing an AMD build because of the cost factor. See, I think that's an illusion, Rick. I think there's a cost in time and a cost in frustration and a cost in money. It's more than just one way of measuring cost. And the idea that you're getting more from AMD is usually not true for most end users, especially gamers. Intel generally beats AMD in gaming. So what I'm hearing a lot from are from gamers who also focus on AMD. What AMD is actually in testing superior in productivity in working, and yet the offices and the corporations that I service, they absolutely do not want AMD processors. So explain that to me. Explain to me how the platform that's right for the clients is exactly the opposite. The clients who would benefit most from Intel are buying AMD, and the clients who would benefit most from AMD are buying Intel. At least from what I'm seeing online, I rarely see the client buy the right, if you're really looking for the best chip for the way that you're using the computer, in most cases that I've experienced that I'm seeing here online, people are choosing for emotional reasons and not for logical ones. But you know what? That's okay. But what bothers me is they seem to not connect that their emotional reasoning is not logical. That's the part that bothers me. Like, at least acknowledge it probably doesn't make sense, but it makes sense to me. And that's okay. That's just, there's nothing wrong with that. But, call it for what it is. That's all I'm saying. John Paul Bacon says, it's too bad that the AMD systems that Carrie has made seem to have issues. I guess I've been lucky that my AMD has been issue free since I built it. Yeah, I don't mean to imply in any way that if you build an AMD system, you're going to have a problem with it. I built the AMD systems the same way I build Intel systems. I didn't study which RAM manufacturers are on the QVL. I just put it together with whatever RAM I've got, whatever solid state drive I've got. The one time I had an issue with a solid state drive was on an AMD motherboard. The only time I've had RAM incompatibility issues has been constantly. There's been at least a half dozen of them with Ryzen chips so far. It's not happened on the Intel platform in years. And that's frustrating to me because it's making my job harder. It means now I've got to do a little more research when buying parts. I can't just buy what's on sale and just, think about height of the RAM and things like that, which was already a concern, or the color if we're worried about aesthetics. Now I got to worry about all of that plus whether or not it's compatible. Not an issue I've got on the Intel side. The AMD chipset driver is nothing but a thorn in my side. I don't like that you have to manually look for it. AMD needs to fix that. And I don't like that everybody focuses on the chip and nobody wants to talk about the RAM, the solid state drive, or the motherboard issues that exist on the AMD platform. But in all fairness, those issues probably existed when the Intel platform was as young, right? When the current generation, or the current edition of Intel chips, which is on its 10th generation, was in generation 1, so 9 generations ago, I'm sure we went through all this. But it's a far more mature platform. It's stable. And I'm in business to make money. Calling me back for systems randomly locking up that I've got to try and figure out because it's intermittent and you can't make it happen. Extraordinarily time consuming, and the profit margin is so low, it's not going to work. The only way I could sell AMD systems is doing the research to find the right board, RAM, solid state drive, everything that works well together, and only sell that configuration. That doesn't sound like a very good choice, right? With Intel, I can sell you pretty much any motherboard, any chip, any SSD. There's just these problems don't exist. And I'm getting frustrated because in a day where I should have gotten 5 things done, I got nothing done because I had to go back and try and figure out what was wrong with the thing I did 3 days ago. And day after day of that starts feeling like I'm not getting anywhere, that I'm spinning my wheels, my time, and my money, and I don't know how much longer I can sustain it. And it's very different from somebody sitting at home going, oh, well, this sucks. I guess I have to figure it out. Let's see here. Lloyd Hedricks contributed $20. He goes, here's something for Jimmy and Lyle's treats. Hey, thank you, Lloyd. Make sure Lloyd's a moderator here. John Panarielli with $20 as well. Hey, John, thank you. We'll make sure John's a moderator. And Farrell Sparky has contributed $5. He said the hardware can be the best on the planet, but if your software isn't up to par with your competition, then you're failing. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if he's talking about Windows or Apple versus Intel. I don't know. I'm simply talking about the hardware. The software is irrelevant. When it comes to AMD, if you can't get the hardware to work correctly and there's no obvious indication that anything is wrong, it's an extraordinarily difficult diagnostic, very time consuming. So I'm a little frustrated. I'm a little angry. I'm kind of kicking myself for not just sticking with what I know. But in the end of it, I am going to learn a lesson from this, and we'll learn it together. Whatever the solution is that's going to make these AMD systems work. And if it means I got to buy certain RAM at whatever price it is because that's all that works, well, that'll be a condition of building an AMD system I'll have to keep in mind when pricing it out. So I'm not saying I'm not going to build any more AMD systems, but you will see fewer of them. I will have a high-end 10700K Intel build and another 3950X AMD build going into some extreme cases for fun. These are the fun builds I had mentioned earlier. But as for selling them to clients, I don't know. I don't know that I can do that without some form of a contract signed by the customer that says I'm not going to support it because it'll put me out of business, potentially. Somebody says, Kerry, I want you to build me an AMD system. I'll go, that's fine. You understand that you're going to take on all responsibilities for compatibility issues. And they might say, well, if that's the case, why am I paying you? You're the expert. You're supposed to know what's compatible and not compatible. I'm telling you, it's changing too quickly. It's very difficult to stay on top of, well, they don't make that RAM anymore. Oh, they don't make that motherboard anymore. Well, that changed because the BIOS updated. Well, it changed because they went to version 2 of the, whatever, of the RAM manufacturer. So that model of RAM isn't the same as it was 6 months ago, even though it shares the same model number, and what wasn't compatible before is compatible now. I can't stay on top of that. I need to just buy some RAM and plug it in. So if people really want it that desperately, I think I'm going to have people basically accept that any issues that arise are not covered under support. And if they want that, they need to go with Intel at this time. Until I have the answers, all I'm going to do is bury myself and put myself out of business by trying to appease what a customer wants. And giving a customer what they want without consideration for what I need to survive, it's not a good business model. Despite whether or not it's a popular attitude, it is a realistic one. And I won't be building computers for anybody if I'm out of business. So I'd rather be called an Intel shill and maintain my business than appease those myopic and insecure viewers who require others to approve of what they're saying and agree with them right into being homeless. That's how extreme it is. I do have an AMD system that I built in the Ncase M1, the 2400G, which is flawless. No problems at all. So I don't want to sit here and tell you every single AMD system I've worked on is bad. It's not the case, and it's not what I'm saying. But it is disproportionately bad, the number of machines I'm having to repair that are AMDs versus the number of machines I'm having to repair that are Intels. Just look at the repair videos on my channel and count them. You can go back all the way to the beginning of this channel. How many AMD repairs are you seeing? How many Intel repairs? And it has nothing to do with the chip. In most of these repairs, it is not the CPU. So focusing solely on the CPU is so shallow. You need to open your mind up and understand everything that's connecting that CPU affects its performance and reliability. And it doesn't matter how good AMD makes it. If there's BIOS issues with RAM compatibility from the motherboard manufacturer, it doesn't matter how cheap the CPU is. That illusion that it's less expensive is only an illusion. Raystar Man has contributed $10. Says, are you using a LAN Cool 2 case from Leon Lee anytime soon? Yes, good friend of the channel, Ryan, sent a LAN Cool 2 case to me exactly for that purpose, and that is another fun build that'll be coming up. I'm very curious about it. I've heard good things, and again, nothing that I would build and sell to a customer. Not that there's anything in particularly wrong with the case, but it is quite large and expensive to ship. Just like that Be Quiet case behind me. That was $160 for the customer to send that case to me. It is over 50 pounds. And then, it gets double boxed. So actually, this doesn't get double boxed. That will be boxed laying down in a big, big box. And the two builds I've got coming up are so big, I don't even think FedEx has a box big enough to ship them, which is going to put me in quite a precarious situation. Once they're built and beautiful and perfect, I have absolutely no use for them, and I don't want them. And I'll have to come up with some creative way to get rid of them. And they're going to be very expensive, very big, very heavy, and very unique. So I will still have to work on a process for figuring out how to, if I sell the system, I have to support it. But if I give the system away, well, I can't afford it. So I'll figure it out. Grover Clark says he loves his Leon Lee Landcool too, but he won't do another one. 011 Dynamics from now on. Atsmanos says, Carrie, I love your videos. Have you given up on OEM heat sinks? No, OEM heat sinks are wonderful when you're buying like Ryzen 5 or Intel i5 or Ryzen 3 or Intel i3. Once you get into the Intel 7, the Ryzen 7, the Intel 9, and the Ryzen 9, those fans are awfully loud, or they ramp up and become too loud, and people complain about the noise. And then when you're getting the X series from AMD or the K series from Intel, you don't get an OEM. So a lot of what you're seeing here on the channel are those high-end chips that don't come with heat sinks. There's no OEM heatsink to pick from. It's not included. So depending on the build that you see, and remember, I'm building what customers are ordering. If the customer is ordering a Ryzen 5, you will see the stock Ryzen 5 CPU used, CPU fan. Same is true with the Core i5. Those run silent, there's no problems. They're not the extreme monsters that consume heat, that need more aggressive cooling, which results in more noise. And the manufacturers acknowledge this, AMD and Intel both acknowledge this by not even including a fan on these chips. So there's no OEM fan to choose from. Photo Mix Media says, can I write you a blank check for those fun builds? So what is a blank check? A check for $0? If you're interested in buying them, I just don't know how I would ship them to you. That would be an issue. So I'm able to afford to do them at this time because contributions from you guys have been generous, especially for my birthday. And I want to use that money back into the channel to provide you some content that you can go, I've never seen Carrie do that before. That's incredible. Um, I think that's the right thing to do with the money. And ultimately, if there's a way to sell it to somebody locally and we can work out and understand the support frustration that could result from something so unique, I'm sure we could work it out. But I don't want to spend 3 days in negotiations when I could be working and making money. So sometimes it's better to just push it aside and move on to the next thing. And it seems a shame, but I need to find a solution, and I will. I just don't have the answer today. Because clearly I will eventually run out of room if I just shove it in the garage. There won't be any room in the garage after a while. And what a waste, to build it, make it beautiful and perfect, and then shove it aside because I don't want to support it. And it's too big to ship. Joseph Hawkins has contributed $5 New Zealand. He says, I cut all the other vids on your YouTube a little bit to say I'm still here and I've just been busy. That's cool, Joseph. It's good to see you. And thank you for popping in and joining us today. What do we got? 636 people watching. So what are we doing with the build? Well, this build, and I'm going to get on with what the title of today's video is after 41 minutes of monologue here. This computer's, as I mentioned, this is going to Mike Smith in Pennsylvania. There's kind of a joke that if you live on the east coast of the United States and you get to be older, it is required by law that you move to Florida. Which leads to the next joke when somebody says they're from God's waiting room. Is when people get older and retire and they don't want to be in the New York snow and the crowds, the rat race. They don't want to be in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Florida's right there, the weather's warm, and they go, that's it, I am retired, and then they die there. So it's God's waiting room, heaven's waiting room. That's the joke. But what's happening now is Mike Smith has bought a home in Florida, and he'll be spending 2 months a year there, I think. And while he's there, he still wants to do the Mike Tech Show and Tech Vets, and he doesn't want to drag his computer back and forth from Pennsylvania to Florida. So he's asked me to build him an identical machine with some slight, very small changes to it, and to ship it to him by Thursday because he's going to be there getting the house ready with furniture and getting internet installed, and he needs the computer ASAP so he can get it configured, and he's going to have to plug in the monitor, keyboard, mouse, get it all set up, and that will be his only connection to the internet while he's in Florida. So if I delay shipping this, he's got I guess he's got his phone, but that's not ideal. And Mike just made that announcement the other day. He keeps keeping it on the down low, but now it's out in the open and everybody knows. So congratulations to Mike, following his dream. That's what he wants. That's great. I saw a video of the home he's buying. It's very nice and looks like a nice, quiet and warm weather place to live. And if he's happy, I'm happy. And so today what I have to do is, to get the system ready to ship, is I have to do the cable management and get the optical drive hooked up. And normally I would just do that off camera, as I mentioned. It's not very riveting to watch. But on the other hand, I also don't like doing the same thing over and over and over again. And so if every time I do the cable management, I'm doing it off camera, then from time to time I think it's appropriate to put the camera on to show you exactly why I don't do it on camera. And there's probably a few twisted minds out there who actually enjoy watching this part, which I think is really strange. But to each his own, judge not lest ye be judged. So with that said, that's what's going on. There's Mike. Mike is in the chat room. Hey, Mike. Yeah. Oystein says hello from Norway. Hey, Oystein. I'm just waiting for Mike to go. Are you going to work on my system today, or I don't know if I could work for Mike. I think he'd be like, Kerry, you got 2 hours of work done today in an 8-hour day. I'll say, yeah, well, customers like me. And Mike will say, yeah, but the boss doesn't. Get to work. Okay. I guess I'll get to work, Mike. So this is exactly in the same condition it was in at the end of yesterday's video. I've not done anything to it off camera. So it does give you sort of a more complete look at the entire building process. It's easy to glaze over things like the cable management because I think based on what I'm seeing customers bring me for repair, they just shove the cables back where people can't see them and they think it's cable managed enough. Like if you can't see the cables on the front, but they're all just a tangled mess in the back, for a lot of customers that I see, that's totally acceptable to them. And it's a nightmare to work on those. So part of the reason to do the cable management is to make it easier on yourself if you have to go back in and work on it. 111 degrees Fahrenheit today, folks. I am burning up. I need to get out of here. So Mike's dream to go to Florida. Congratulations, Mike. When I tell you I've moved back to my home in Michigan, the general state of Michigan being my home, not anywhere, and not anywhere specific. I haven't decided where in Michigan yet, but anywhere in the mitten, I'm home. And I will be so much happier, I promise you. In fact, Mike, if you're 1/3 as happy as I'm going to be when I get back to Michigan permanently, then I'm jealous of you. And congratulations. Mike, life is filled with sacrifices and rewards. Mike didn't just walk down the street and pick up a lottery ticket. He works and continues to work. And in fact, he tells me just from buying that home and talking to the people in the neighborhood there, he's got 2 jobs. They're like, we need a computer guy. So when you move here, call us. We have work for you. So even when he's rewarding himself for the fruits of his labors, he ends up with more labor. That's just great. It's in your blood, You're a doer. You get things done. Love it. Love it. Inspired by it. Mike, I thought this was a modular power supply when I had it. Unfortunately, it's not what I thought it was, but it's a really good power supply. I hope you don't mind. It's all I have. Everything I've got now is non-modular. I've ordered some modular power supplies from EVGA, like 600, what were they? 700 watts, 750, and they're $150 each. So I just spent $600 for 4 power supplies. And EVGA limited me. They said you can only buy 1 per household of each model. And then I had to go to Amazon to find 2 more. And they're all different, but they're all modular EVGA between 650 and 750 watts. And I'll get them whenever I get them. But for these fun builds coming up, I need to have a good power supply, like desperately. I also want to change the power supply out. That Silverstone power supply, I want it to be black. So, nothing's wrong with it. It's just the wrong color. And I'm going to be needing some power supplies. And I cannot believe the price. But those power supplies that I've ordered all have 10-year warranties. So that makes the pill a little easier to swallow. $15 a year, a little over $1 a month for a power supply with peace of mind with a warranty for 10 years. Okay, I guess that's a fair trade. Ghost Shadow says, I think Mike is nuts. I've lived in Florida. You sweat just seeing someone else move. Thinking of moving causes sweat. Breathing causes sweat. But you say sweat like it's a bad thing. I'm standing here doing nothing and I'm sweating because I live in a oppressively hot desert that human beings should not live in. To each his own. I'll take the snow any day. But maybe Mike's been living in the snow for 40 years and he's done with it. And I've been living in the desert for 40 years and I'm done with it. I want to go back to the snow. Everybody wants to switch where they are. You live in the city, you want to go live in the wilderness. You live in the wilderness, after a certain amount of time, you want to go to the city where things are happening. You got to find that balance in life. To each their own. And congrats to Mike. That's an amazing accomplishment. What he did is not easy. So, all right, I guess I have to work now. I say it jokingly. I love doing this stuff. I do. The cable management is so boring. It's so boring, but it's absolutely necessary. So I just have to suck it up. So what I'm doing right now is just tying up the front board umbilical cables, specifically the power switch, reset switch, power LED, and hard drive LED. And to do this properly, I tie up the cables close to the front towards the motherboard, and then I'll pull the slack out through the back, and I just will run a nylon zip tie or a cable tie here, starting from where the cables end, so that if there's any slack left over, it's going to be back hidden up here if one cable's slightly longer than any of the others, and that way it's well hidden. If I'd start this way, if I started cable tying here where people don't see, I could end up with a weird sort of extra one cable extra length and longer than the others. And then you have to figure out how you can fold it and hide it and wire tie it. And I'd rather just hide it back here where nobody's going to see it anyway. It's inevitable that these cables, depending on how they're routed, when you're issuing more than one cable, that the cable length changes. Like on the USB 3 cable here, like you see how that's all separated? I'm going to keep that together, but the cable that runs on the inside is slightly shorter than the cable that runs on the outside. And as you start to wire tie it, you'll start to see the extra length create a little hump in the cable where they won't touch anymore. And it's just because the manufacturer of the case doesn't know how you're going to route the cable. It's like if you watch a car race, a car that's going around in circles. The car that's on the inner circle is faster than the car on the outside of the circle. That's why most passing in racing is done at the corners, right closest to the center of the circle, not around the outside edges. It does happen, but it's harder. You've got to build up more speed to do that because you're driving a further distance to get around that corner or to go around that top of that circle. It's math. So I know Mike just posted the latest Mike Tech Show. If you've not listened to it or you've never heard it, you should check it out. It's free. And Mike shares stories of his business, his frustrations. It's a little like what we do on Tech Vets, but Mike can focus on solely his issues. He doesn't have to listen to mine. And share with you his experiences. So if you're thinking of getting in the business, you can sort of get an idea of the kinds of things you may have to deal with. And then he'll, not just tell you about the problem, but he'll tell you what he's done to resolve it. Whatever the problem is, it may not be a customer problem, maybe a technical issue, or maybe something that makes his life a little easier with automation or software utilities. And as he learns them, he shares that with his audience. And he's been doing that for, 15 years or some ridiculous thing. And he's never charged for it. And he does it as though it's his responsibility, like he's getting paid to do it. Like he's very, very dedicated to producing those Mike Tech shows and always has been. A lot of podcasters, they start out real excited and very enthusiastic, and then they just kind of pod fade. They just ran out of things to say, or they lost the motivation. They decide it's just not worth it because you deal with a lot of harassment, and Mike doesn't really talk about that, but he's got to. You put yourself out there publicly, you're going to get attacked. Maybe not often, or maybe often, I don't know. And you get sometimes it just after an amount of time, he goes, "This isn't worth it anymore. Just trying to help people, and I'm just getting abused for it." So that's why I admire what Mike does, because it's not like he's cashing a big check as a result of that. His money's coming from his work, his actual IT job, not from his podcasting. Unless there's something I don't know, which is possible. And what that tells me about that man is he's very passionate. It's not just a job for him. This is a lifestyle. And no matter what anybody says, it's not going to change his lifestyle. And that's how you separate the men from the boys. That's how you separate those who say they want something versus those who actually are willing to put the effort forth endlessly in order to achieve it. And I don't know what drives some people to that level and why some people are unwilling to put in that kind of effort, other than to say, perhaps it's just not, the things that people aren't being driven or perhaps aren't the right things for them to be doing. Find the thing that drives you and do it. And understand that there are going to be lots of people telling you why you shouldn't or why you're terrible, and you have to march forward anyway, because if you truly feel it, then what anybody else says doesn't matter. Although it can be very discouraging. You got to find a way through it. Mike says 24/7 computers. Is that all, Mike? Just 24/7? I am 39. That's right, 30 hours a day, 9 days a week. I have to wake up a half an hour before I go to bed. All right, I gotta tell you something. One of my special computer builds I got coming up, Mike is gonna hate it. He's gonna hate it. And I want to keep it a surprise, and I can't. Let me get it. Let me show you. Remember I said there's builds you do for obligation out of, responsibility, and there's builds you do for fun. This is going to be one of the most stupid things you've ever seen, and you're probably going to absolutely love it. Let me get it. I have to go way out here because there's no room in the garage. There's no room in the house. Oh, I think does this have a seatbelt? Okay. Are you watching? My back. Okay. Okay. Hold on. Somebody help me. Oh. Let's turn it around this way. Whew. Oh. What do you think, Mike? You want that one? Yeah. You can look that up on YouTube if you want to see some of the videos people have done on these builds. Is that a car in there? It should have wheels, that's for sure. Does it come with a forklift? It absolutely should. William Dawson says, I see your new house game. You can name it the herniator. Yeah, I agree, Lance. I think you're right. Evolutionary Mishap says, that thing looks as big as an apartment that I had when I was younger. And Mike says, no, he doesn't want it. Are you sure you don't want to think about that? How can you ship it? I think I just get inside and drive it over to you. $107 for shipping, $329. That sales tax that puts that case, just the empty case, at $455. And that's without parts in it. So that'll be a fun build. Suddenly the Corsair 200R doesn't seem so big. Maybe I can do this one with the Encase M1, the smallest build with the big build, and we'll do them together. Luke says, there's your new studio, built-in streaming. Hugh says, Carrie, it's nice you're venturing out to get some more viewers with content. I fully support that. Yeah, and I hope it's not damaged. The box is pretty rough. So I will need to take it out of there soon and inspect it for any damage, because that box looks like it's had a rough time getting here. But, different strokes for different folks. I see some people having some strong opinions one way or another over this thing, but I can promise you it's definitely different from what I normally do. Okay, all right, back to what I was doing. Sorry, I couldn't contain it. It arrived and I had to show you guys. It's just unbelievably over the top, ridiculous, stupid, positively stupid. So I had to have it. So yeah, I had to find some power supplies. I'm gonna have to put a power supply in there. That's be kind of weird to put a 450 watt non-modular $40 power supply in that monster. Don't you think that'd be kind of weird, kind of unbalanced? So I've got those power supplies ordered today. Probably gonna look for some liquid cooling, just some RGB liquid cooling to give it, because there's plenty of room for a radiator up there, and we can put some fans that have RGB lighting on it, and we can light it up on the inside and the out and have all the color sequenced together. Spend way too much time on that, for sure. So what I'm doing right now is just tying up this USB 3 header cable, keeping it paired Keeping the two cables paired together, one on top of the other, nice and clean, nice and neat. And I'll probably go through about 60 cable ties on a build like this. 40 to 60. So it's nice when, Corsair gives you 5 or 6 free ones, but it's nowhere near enough. But because I use so many of them, I'll take whatever ones I get for free, gladly. Not that they're expensive, but when you go through as many of them as I do, it adds up. So what about, there's Ron in the chat room, Ron Hillier. He says, that looks like a space heater for an auditorium. You know what? If you put the right processor in there, it just might be a space heater. And where you place it could be an auditorium. So you just could be, it may not be that it just looks like that. It could actually be that. Mike Smith says, I love the simple case of the Beast and the Beast 2. Should we call it Son of the Beast? Lyle would not eat his new home to sleep in. Oh, yes, he would. Lyle will take on any size box. He will kill it. He doesn't care if it's the size of a house. He's taking it down. I promise you. That dog does not like boxes of any size. John Doe says that thing is going to need theater spotlights. RGB lights are way too small. Sherry McFarland says, I thought my 2011 Cooler Master case was huge. And there's like a couple people in the chat room going, how the hell did Kerry lift that? What's he got going on underneath that shirt? I wish. It will be a few weeks before I can get that video in process because I've got so many other things I've got to get done first, but it was part of me that's like, save it for a surprise, and then there's a part of me that's like, well, let's build some anticipation. It's one thing to just talk about it. It's another thing to give you a small taste, just to let you know I'm serious. Give you a point of reference of when I'm telling you I'm going to be doing some stuff that's a little different and it's for fun and I don't want to ship it because it's way too big and FedEx doesn't have a box big enough. You can see I wasn't exaggerating. That Conqueror 2 case is 1,018 pounds in England. And Patrick says it looks like Lyle already attacked that box. I agree. It's pretty rough. Get it? Rough. Evolutionary Mishap says, I want to know how much it weighs. It's probably on the box somewhere. I think if you type Cougar 2 in Amazon, it should say what the weight is. On the shipping label, it says what? Is there any weight listed here? 104 pounds. 104 pounds is what it says. 104 pounds. If I'd have read that, I would not have tried picking it up. I should not be lifting 104 pounds. That's definitely a two-man lift job there. Do not do what I did. It's not healthy. unless, you're in extremely good physical shape and have the strength of two men, like me. It could happen. So this is the 8-pin CPU power cable that comes out, obviously, up here in the corner. And then there's a couple of wire loops here that we can use for the cable ties. Kind of keep this tucked in and out of the way so it doesn't interfere with closing the back panel. And you'll see I'm not tightening those cable ties down yet because I'm still pulling on the cable and adjusting it for where I need it to fit to align with this loop right down here. It honestly didn't feel like 104 pounds to me, but that's what the shipping label does say. See, now I've got this audio cable wrapped around like that. That bothers me. I already unplugged it once and ran it again, and I did it wrong, so I'm going to do it a third time, and, third time's the charm. That's what they say. Should I go underneath? Or should I go above? I should go above. Bring it back around, plug it back in. And slowly but surely it starts to, you can kind of see where we're going with the cable management and what it's going to look like. And that helps motivate keeping me going because when I first get started doing the cable management, it just looks like a big job. And as you just start cable managing one cable at a time, it doesn't take that long, and before you know it, you've got the whole thing done, and it's something you can be very proud to show off. I wonder if I can turn this way so you can see the front of the case and take up less of my counter space. Yeah, it doesn't really look that good that way though, does it? All right. And we called this one the beast. I've got the front case fan I still have to hook up, so let's do that now. Now usually we have a front fan header on these boards down by the front port umbilicals. Let's see if I'm right. Yep. Oh wow, this one's got 3. That's pretty cool. How do I want to do that? Getting there. And as you can tell, when it's 5 o'clock at my house, the wild animals come out for food. Is it time for dinner? All right, we'll take a little break and give them some food. Here you go, boy. I can't see the other one. You ready? Are you hungry? There you go, boy. Bob Shoemaker says, what else is packed in that computer box? The spec says 50 pounds. Well, like I said, it didn't feel like 104 pounds to me. I'm just telling you what the label said. I don't know what it actually weighs. I don't think I could have lifted it that high up by myself if it was 104 pounds, not without me paying a price for that. It's definitely not 40 pounds, I'll tell you that. Newegg says it's 40 pounds. That's very optimistic. It's definitely not. That is definitely not 40 pounds. The machine I'm building for Mike right here, when this ships, should be just under 40 pounds. And look at the significance of the size difference. There's no way you can have that much more metal and be at the same weight. Although this is with all the, the total weight with all the parts. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm just telling you what the shipping label says. I'll just tell you. It's definitely not 40 pounds. And I'm pretty confident it's not 104. It feels like it's somewhere around, if I had to guess, I'd say 65 pounds. That would be my guess. Maybe as much as 70. I honestly think if it was 104, I wouldn't have gotten it on the counter. All right, you guys ready for a cookie? Is it cookie time? They say it's cookie time. Hold on. Let's see here. Let's take care of these boys and give them their dessert. Okay, come here. You ready for a cookie? Is it cookie time? Are you good boys? Are you good boys? Chomp. Chomp. See ya. All right. Back to business. Lots of distractions. The only way I would accurately be able to measure how much that case weighs in the box would be to put myself on a scale and then step off the scale, pick up the box, and step back on the scale and subtract the two weights. That would be about the only accurate way. Since I don't have a scale big enough, I would have to sort of stand with it on a scale. But regardless of what it weighs, it's large, so that makes it difficult to ship. I don't mind shipping something that's 200 pounds if it's this big, you know. But when it's that size, even if it's 20 pounds, it's the size, not the weight. That's mostly concerning to me. There's an awkwardness to moving it around. It certainly won't fit on the Lazy Susan. That much I know. So I'll have to figure something out for that when I work on it. Okay. The case manufacturer site says it's 40 pounds. I don't know what to tell you. That's the heaviest 40 pounds I've ever lifted. Maybe it's 40 pounds and it's the size of the box that makes it feel heavier. I don't know what to tell you guys. You want to come over here and pick it up? See for yourself. Let's see, how do I want to run this cable? I'm still not liking this audio cable. I still don't like the way I've run it. I'm going to pull it off a third time. I'm trying to take another stab at this here. What are we doing? What am I doing? I want to go this way, I think. Okay, so now that all that's done, now I can look at the optical drive and get it cabled up here. In the motherboard box, I'll have the SATA cables right here. We'll take one of these out. Put the extra one in there. And we'll go right back here to the SATA connector on the back of the optical drive. Run it out through the back to keep the cable management looking nice and clean. We'll plug it into SATA port 0, which on this motherboard is going to be the top SATA port closest to the bottom of the board. Clip faces up. Push the excess through. Spin that back around. Let's take a look at what's going on over here. I want to make sure I'm not interweaving with any other cables. Otherwise, it makes the system harder to work on in the future, right? If I've got to undo other cables to get to the one cable I want to remove or change. And you can see it's kind of twisted, so I need to straighten that out if I want the cable management to look good. The cable's got to be completely flat against itself. Are you waiting for your turn to drink? Are you in line, sir? Are you in line for the water? Yeah, he's really hogging it up, isn't he? Yeah. Well, I'm sure that eventually he'll drain the bowl. There you go. Now it's your turn. There he goes. They have a nice little system they've worked out between the two of them. Sometimes you'll see dogs try and both drink out of the bowl at the same time. Plow's like, I don't need his cooties. Then the last cable I've got to hook up is power for the optical drive. So one of these cables down here, we can find out who the winner is going to be. We're going to pick one. Let's see. Who wants a purpose to exist? Not you. Not you. Definitely not you. We have a winner. You are the chosen one. Let's see. We'll run it out through here. Is that how I want to run that? Yeah. And we'll plug the power cable in to the back of the DVD drive. And then we'll take all this excess and we'll fold it up. These large SATA connectors, when they sit out like this, it can make it very difficult to put the side panel on. The Corsair doesn't give us a lot of room for cable management. So you got to get a bit creative and either find that indent to kind of align with the cable management so that those SATA connectors don't interfere with closing the back panel, or don't run this cable back behind the panel, but then it means, the inside is not going to look as good. On the other hand, there's no case window here, but regardless, it's just an individual choice. You don't have to worry about doing it a right way or a wrong way. In fact, you don't have to do it at all, quite frankly. It's completely optional. Now, when it comes to the rest of these power cables, we're not using them currently, but Mike may have use for them at some point in the future, whether, he's adding more storage or a different graphics card, what have you. So what I do is, the cables are already they remember the last time the way they were folded, and I'm going to just keep those same folds in the cable. And each cable gets folded individually as it was from the factory. You see how I fold the cable individually first. And then you can bundle them all together, which for right now, I think I'm just going to use a cable tie just to hold it for a minute. But I'm going to probably just turn around and cut right off here in a minute. But I don't have another hand. So for now, I'll just hold it together by wasting a cable tie. I suppose if I had a wire tie, I could temporarily use a wire tie here. Wouldn't be so wasteful. And what I'm going to do is there are holes on the bottom of this Corsair 200R case. I don't know how well you can see them. And I'm going to run another cable tie around just like this one, but through those holes, and it's going to basically bolt these extra cables down. And this is all going to get pushed out. And that one's going to get pushed back out too. So you get an idea of, and this one's going to get pushed out. I'm going to take all the slack out of those. And this will sit, this will be flat at the bottom. But that's basically, when we take the slack away, tighten it up in the back, flatten this out on the bottom, you get a really good idea of what that's going to look like when it's complete. Rick says, I'm worried he hooked up the optical drive to a disabled port. NVMe won't disable your SATA ports. Only when you're using M2 SATA does it disable SATA ports, as far as I know. Also, on the boards I work on, only SATA ports 5 and 6 are traditionally disabled. I don't usually see ports 0 and 1. It's usually the ones on the end, but always check your motherboard manual to be sure. I will fire the system up and ensure everything is there. In other words, make sure Mike still has a C drive, a D drive, and then the optical drive will be E. If any of the ports have been disabled, I'll be missing a drive letter. It'll be very obvious, and it's just a matter of unplugging the SATA cable and plugging it into a different port, though I believe I have accurately plugged it in. I've done this a time or two before. But we can all make mistakes, and overconfidence is usually when it happens. Essential Working Too Hard contributes $5 and says, did I mention I received my mouse pad today and it's great? Thanks. Right on. Well, thanks for letting me know. John Young has contributed $5. He says, for the horde. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. Ricky B's got a link from a website that says this case is 47 kilograms, which is 103.77 pounds shipping weight. That is what aligns with what was paid for shipping. If the case weighs less than 104 pounds, all I can tell you is the amount they paid was for 104 pounds. I can't believe you guys are still talking about what it weighs. You guys are like infatuated with the weight of the case. Mitch is hiding in that box, adding to the weight. All right, sorry, just going through the comments here, seeing what I've missed. What is the total cost of the system I'm building? This one over here? I don't know yet. I haven't done the math on it. It's roughly it's roughly $2,000. Somewhere in there. I'm not sure yet. Probably less. Maybe 1800, between 1800 2000. I mean, the processor's 500 bucks. The RAM's 150, so you're at 650. The case is about 75. Power supply is about 100. Graphics cards like 170. Two solid state drives, one's 250 and one's 420. Optical drive's only $20. Cooler is $50. I think that's everything. And then that's assuming you already have Windows 10. Mike provided me a Windows 10 license. And we mentioned Mitch's name and he suddenly appears. How does that work? Hi, Mitch. Ron wants to know if his power light is too bright, how can he dim it? Grab a piece of electrical tape and put it right over the light. Team CompuRepo says, thanks, Carrie. Your badge arrived last week here in Belgium. Right on. That's cool. Mitch Morrison says he's hiding in the box, and Toto rocks. Yeah, even Mike doesn't know the cost of his build yet. We sort of have an idea because most of the parts I already had in inventory. Many of these parts are simply not available right now. We'd have to wait. And Mike needed the system, and I'm like, well, I got these parts here I can sell you. So whatever, I have to go through my receipts and figure out what I paid for them. Ron mentions you could use a piece of window tint if your LED on your case is too bright. A lot of people take out Sharpies, like a marker, and cover it up with a marker. It doesn't seem to work very well when I've tried it, but maybe some nail polish. Or just reach in your case and unplug the LED. It sounds to me like you don't need it. If an LED is causing you distress, I would just unplug it. It should be pretty obvious when your system's on anyway. And they sell cases now without power LEDs and hard drive LEDs, so you wouldn't be the first one. A couple contributions have come in from Madi. I missed those. Hey, Madi. So Madi Wells contributed $20. He says, good day, Carrie and chat. And then he contributed $5 and then $5 again. Thank you. Always appreciated. Why would a guy have nail polish? There's plenty of men that wear nail polish. Penn Jillette from Penn & Teller always has a red fingernail. The same finger is always, the fingernail on that finger is always red. And he says it's personal. He will not answer questions about it. And there's plenty of other men who care about their appearance who want to polish their nails. Don't be so judgy. Not everybody wants to look like a stereotype. Michael Dane says, one thing duct tape can't fix, that's stupid. Yeah, duct tape fixes stupid pretty good, actually. I'll tell you how. Privately. Cheryl Cockrose says, I use nail polish in fishing lure making. There you go. Sounds pretty manly to me. You can see how much I enjoy the cable management. It's the last thing I want to do, but it has to be done. I got to do it. I have to do it. Don't have to like it. It's part of what comes with the deal. When I was first building computers, there was no such thing as cable management. Those were the good old days. Cases weren't this small. Cases were 3 feet tall. They weren't made out of aluminum. They were made out of steel, and they would cut you. You better make sure you have a tetanus shot. You had to be a tough person to work on computers when computers were in their early evolutionary stages. Although I suspect looking back 50 years from now, this will seem pretty rudimentary to that generation. So all I'm doing here is just folding up this USB 3 cable. It's bulky. And this is a couple of cables that are going to interfere with, potentially interfere with closing the rear panel are what I already mentioned, the connectors, the SATA connectors on the SATA power cable. The thicker the cable is, the more inflexible it is, and it starts to, if you start layering the cables on top of each other, they get too thick, and then you'll have sort of this weird hump in the panel because the panels are made of very thin aluminum. So it's important that each cable kind of stands in its own little area and that we're not stacking them, at least on a Corsair 200R case. And then this is just the audio cable here, and then that's just going to wrap down and be a part of this group. I'm starting to have second thoughts about how I ran that cable. I think I want to run it under now that I see what I've done here. Or I can just leave it that way. I guess it's okay that way. So if we grab one of the larger, these are the 8-inch nylon zip ties, and then we go through the little wire management loop here. What you can do is you can lay all your cables flat like this. Whoops. Make sure we get them all in there. Don't leave one out. And then don't tighten it, because now I can make the adjustments I need to make with regards to pulling any slack. If I feel like I want this cable to be a little tighter, I can make a little loop and stick it underneath that nylon zip tie. And especially true, I always have to do that with the front port umbilical cables. So if we just kind of raise that up where I need it to be, where it's not too taut, not too tight, and then push it back down. So that's why I don't want to tighten that nylon zip tie. I want to be able to make that loop. Now, what I've inadvertently done now is I've stacked the cables, which I need to undo. I need each cable to sort of be flat against the case as much as I possibly can, within reason, so that I don't run into any interference putting that back panel on. I can already see it's going to be a little bit of a challenge right here where they're sort of bunching up. This audio cable is trouble. I'm going to pull that back out. I don't like how that's fitting. We could do something like this maybe. So I've made it a little bit tighter so I can start doing a little more refined cable management. And you'll see I can adjust this audio cable to kind of hide the slack as much as possible. And then just use another wire tie later on up here, like so. But for right now, let me just focus on this little area, keep it all flat. It's going to work for me. And then if Mike has to work on this, if he cuts this one cable tie, you'll see all the umbilicals are tied. So I'm not tying the cables together except in the final assembly. So each cable is individually wire tied, and then together they're wire tied with one or two nylon zip ties, depending on what the case permits, because there's another wire loop down here that we can use if we want to. And the more of them we use, generally the better the cabling looks. But if you use too many, it's going to be very discouraging to go through and cut all those. And be careful when you do, because you could very easily cut right through your cable. And that's not a warranty issue. That's you screwing up. So don't go too aggressive with your cable management unless you're willing to accept the risks that come with that later on down the line. And you'll see I keep that one pretty loose. Those cables don't have to be super tight to the case. In fact, by making the cable super tight to the case, you may be inadvertently pulling on the edge of the end of the cable and slightly unplugging it. And even if it's not happening while you've got it in your possession, it might happen during the shipping process as the computer is handled by the shipper and it's bouncing around and vibrating in the back of a truck. If the cable's super tight and you've not allowed it some room to sort of move, to give a little bit, it's likely going to become slightly unplugged or unseated. And then the customer is going to call you with a support call. This isn't happening. And you're going to have the customer take the panel off and check all the plugs. A couple other contributions have come in. Let's see what we got here. Steve Warrington's contributed $2. George Z with $2. Daniel Pexton with $2. Daniel says, Carrie is the cable management pro. So I wish. Glenn's Music has contributed 20 Australian dollars and said he just talked to the CEO up at Cable Management and he says, you're doing it all wrong. Just make sure everything is all plugged in and let everything flap around in the breeze. And he also wished you all the best for 1985. Right on. Sounds about right. Abdul Azim Patel contributed $9.99. He wants to know if that case is bigger than the Cosmos 2. I don't know yet. I haven't taken it out of the box, but I can tell you that once all the parts were installed in the Cosmos 2, I could not lift it. The Cosmos 2 was pretty large, and that video is here on the channel if you want to see me build in the largest case I've ever built in. Until this comes out of the box, I honestly have no idea how big it is, but it seems a bit smaller to me. But I don't know. I don't know. And Merle Essex just contributed £2. Thank you, Merle. I am a little confused on why you guys have timed out Jeffrey Smith for saying, yes, this computer build is epic. What's wrong with him saying that? Did I miss something? Why are you guys doing that? I don't see anything offensive in that comment. I don't see it spamming. I don't see it promoting any other products. What have I missed? Don wants to know if I'm having any Coke today. I had my Coca-Cola the first hour of the stream, and then I've switched over to some Gatorade. It's just so hot. The Coke is not refreshing. Once the temperature of the hits, 110 degrees, Coke is like, just doesn't do it. Leaves me thirsty. Bruce says your mods are out of control per usual. Well, I don't know I'd go that far. I might be missing something. Don says he's been going off with smart aleck remarks. But smart aleck remarks are okay. You don't need to hide anybody because they're trying to be smart. I don't know why you guys are doing that. I don't approve of that. If somebody wants to be a smart aleck, that's fine. If they're being openly vulgar or they're spamming a product, then you can hide them. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you to ignore them. But please don't time people out because you feel like they're being smart. They might be sincere and you might be misreading them. But regardless, there's no harm in it either way. He is messing about with his fonts, bringing up for everyone to review. Why is that a problem? What am I missing? How is that vulgar? How is that spamming? What's the problem here? Weird fonts in backward type. Again, how is that a vulgar? How is it offensive? Or how is it spamming? Those are the only three reasons that anybody should be hidden here on this channel. Thomas Tidwell's contributed $10. Hey, Thomas, thank you. pour some Gatorade into the ice cube tray and have some Gatorade cubes. It's not a bad idea. So, my friends in blue, if you want to do me the best service possible, you will exercise extreme restraint, and you will not hide anyone, and you most certainly won't, ban them or time them out unless one of those three criteria is met: vulgarity, spamming, or being, extremely offensive. So if that's the case and you're not certain, be sure to bring it to my attention. Let me make that call. I will never be upset at a mod for being too forgiving. But a mod that's too aggressive is doing the exact opposite of why I've made you a mod. So it's okay for you to not like somebody, but don't abuse your power as a mod and take out your personal issues with somebody with the power I've trusted you with. Please. Sometimes the mods aren't entirely sure what to do. I got a real easy answer for you. When you're not sure what to do, bring it to my attention or do nothing. I will never be upset with a mod for choosing either of those two choices. Super easy. Always err on the side of caution. And I've noticed a lot of conflict lately with Aora's team, Jeffrey, who's my mod, and I mod you because I consider you a friend. What I'm asking people in blue to do is don't participate as a puppet and allow somebody to manipulate you and allow them to anger you and allow them to upset you. Ignore them. Aora's team, Jeffrey, I need you to learn how to ignore people who upset you. Stop responding to them. They are treating you like a puppet. They're pulling your strings. Don't let them do that anymore. The way you win is you simply don't acknowledge their existence. Don't return fire. Okay? Somebody's firing at you with comments or whatever that you don't like, ignore them. Don't even acknowledge them. Don't chew them out. Ignore them. Rise above. Matt Powers contributed $2. Thank you, Matt. And of course, I appreciate all the efforts of everybody in blue. Sometimes I feel like I just need to rein it in a little bit. Sometimes it gets a little too crazy. And, we're supposed to be supportive and kind to each other. And if somebody is affecting you in a way that prevents you from being supportive or kind to them, please, please, please just ignore them. Don't respond to them. Don't talk about them. Ignore. I don't know how else to explain. Ignore them. Change the subject. That looks pretty good to me. So the final piece of this now is the power cables here. And so what I'll do is I'll grab the nylon zip tie here, and I'm going to run it through one of the holes down here in the bottom of the case. Kind of in the middle of this area here. And then bring that back up right about there, as much width as I need for those cables, right? So you see that's going to look like that under there, right? We'll pick this back up and we'll bring it around. like this, and I'll just get this cable tie started so I can cut the other one off that's been keeping those cables together while I did this at the same time, right? Because it's hard to do without, without something at least temporarily holding those cables together, or they just start getting crazy on you. Now that one can be nice and tight. We don't have to worry about leaving any slack because there's nothing plugged in that we have to worry about getting unplugged, through the shipping process. I'd say that's done. Finally, there's one less cable job I've got to do later. So yeah, that's pretty much it right there. That's the way it's going to look. Let's do a little Anthony Remus autograph on the back here. I like how Anthony signed the back of the motherboard tray. I usually sign like the inside of the front panel, but this seems like a good spot for it. And this is 620. Okay, now we can plug it in, make sure everything still works. Like I said, we want to make sure the drive letters are all still there, that we didn't unplug anything, make sure the heart rate LED and power LED works. This is the final test before it gets shipped to ensure that I know that when I shipped it, it worked, right? If he gets it and something doesn't work, well, I don't have to wonder if I might have accidentally pulled a cable too tight during cable management. And then once the side panels go on after that, I'll wipe it down with some Windex, get all the fingerprints and things off of it nice and pretty. Then the plastic bag that it came out of, that the case came out of, and the styrofoam back in the original case box goes back together, along with this box right here with all the spare parts and documentation. And that'll get taken over to FedEx, and that'll be laid down into a larger box with this on top, and then that'll be shipped off to Florida. That's the process in its entirety. So for the last time, I hope, we'll be plugging it back in. Keyboard and mouse are up here. So take that, unplug that, turn that back on. And I need an HDMI cable. Okay, well, I'm not being listened to by ARS team Jeffrey. He continues to, he just refuses. So I'm just going to remove moderator status. And if he wants to understand what I'm trying to convey and be more supportive and kind, even to people he doesn't like, by ignoring them, I'll make him a mod again. But I'm not, it's just too distracting to what I'm doing. It's not why I made you a mod. Be kind, be supportive, or say nothing. Okay, switch on the back. Here we go. Flip the switch on now, and we'll go over to input number 2, which is camera 2. Camera 2. Okay, so now we're on camera 2. It says no signal. I'm going to hit the power button. I want to make sure that the power light is on. I realize you guys just see no signal. Give it a second, and the video card should initialize here in just a moment and fill your screen full screen. Well, assuming you're watching in full screen, with what I hope will be a power on self-test. Let's see. I'm still waiting. Any minute now, I hope. And why is it not working? Oh, okay, there it is. Whew, it's getting a little worried. Front fan is turning, rear fan is turning, CPU fan is turning, the desktop is up. I want to see a C drive, a D drive, and an E drive. So while we're here in the desktop here, I will double click on the My Computer icon that my Windows Optimizer tool adds to the desktop. And there's C, there's D, and there's E, the DVD. So I've hooked all that up correctly. You'll see there's no interference with any SATA ports. We've got a little exclamation point here with the Windows security. I dismiss that, and turn that on. Of course, Mike will have his own solution for this as well. We'll uninstall the 3D Mark. I'm sure Mike doesn't want that. And it's a big file. It's going to take up, 6 gigs of space. And that was quick. Just future Mark system info, we can get rid of that too. Automatically close, yep. I think everything else is, yeah, everything else is good. Leave it all, Mike will take care of it from there to his preferences. And we'll sort everything here by name, which is going to put it in descending order. We'll do it again, sort it by name, put it in ascending order. But you know what? Let's get rid of I don't know why it left the 3D Mark icon on the desktop. Let's get rid of that. It says it's no longer there. Well, that's not confusing. Let's restart and see if the uninstall has left behind some kind of a cache. All right, let's see what this thing takes to boot now. It should boot up in a more, should initialize faster, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, there it goes. That feels normal. System is dead quiet. Like I don't hear any of the fans running. Remember, there's a CPU fan, a rear case fan, a front case fan, a power supply fan, and there are 2 fans on the graphics card that are turning, albeit slowly. And yeah, that icon, it just must have been cached from before. So when we rebooted, it got rid of it. Very good. Very good. That looks good. We're using, how much space are we using on the drive? About 45 gigs on a new install of Windows 10 2004. Windows 10 is activated. We can look one more time at the system specifications to ensure that it sees it is a Core i9 9900K running at 3.6. It turbos up when needed. And then 32 gigs of RAM is installed and acknowledged. You'll notice that it doesn't say so many gigs of RAM are usable because it's disabled the onboard graphics card. It's done that all automatically. I've not changed anything in the BIOS, and Windows is activated. The product ID is not anything, that's not revealing anything, folks. That's just a code for Windows. It's like a barcode for Windows 10 Professional for the OEM version. Everybody who's got Windows 10 Pro OEM will have the same product ID. It's not unique to the system. You don't need to leave comments that I've exposed a product ID or something. That's not what that is. If you don't believe me, you can try it. Try and use it and see what happens. Everything looks good here. So I think that's, yeah, hard drive LED is blinking on and off. We'll go ahead and shut this down, which should happen relatively quickly, and that was quick. And I should be able then to put the panels back on, right? The final step is the very first step. Very first step was taking the panels off. Very last step will be putting the panels back in. Just have a bit of dust on them. I got to clean those off. And then I have the thumb screws that go in the back. I've thrown those in the box so I don't lose them because I work on so many computers. I like to keep everything that goes with a particular system altogether in the box. So even though it's kind of loose in the box, I know it's in there somewhere. That's my system for being organized without driving myself crazy with, taking that too far. And then on this side of it, I'm gonna go this way. Hopefully this will go on without too much of a fuss with those cables back there. Sometimes it does require me, which appears it's going to make me do now, to lay the case flat so I can add a little pressure, downward pressure, like trying to close an overfilled suitcase. So as much as I've made these cables as flat as I can, it's still going to require a bit of downward force. It's not going to go on as easy as the other side panel did, where there's obviously nothing to potentially interfere like these cables. So put that on like so. We want to push down on it. Oh, there it goes, seated there. And I sort of have to use both arms to push down and then slide forward and make sure that it's fully seated. The little tabs are fully seated into the slots, and make sure that we don't have any sort of bubble or rise. I do kind of feel it, but I don't see it. And I think that's about as good as we're going to be able to get it, quite honestly. It is one little minor thing I would love to change on the 200R, and that's the depth between the back of the motherboard tray and this panel. I just wish the case was just a little tiny bit wider. But it's not a big complaint. I've learned to work around it. And if it really, really bothered me, I could just keep refining the cable management to a point where I would run the cables further apart from each other in order to have one individual cable. It's when you start bunching multiple cables together, that's when you start dealing with what I'm dealing with over here. But it's just a technique I like to use. And so long as the panel goes on, even if it is a little bit of a struggle sometimes, then that's good enough for me. In a perfect world, you'll spray the paper towel or the cloth you're using. Don't spray the item directly. That's how you can get yourself in trouble. I shouldn't do it that way. I've gotten in trouble with doing that a long time ago. Ron knows the secret. Hey, it was the 80s. It was a different time, all right? Looks good to me. Don't want to forget my wireless dongle. That's got to stay with the keyboard and mouse. Look at that, right at 6 o'clock, and I'm all done. You know what time FedEx closes? 6 o'clock. So this won't ship till tomorrow, but it's done. It's absolutely done. I got an LOL from Ron. Yeah, he knows. He knows. All right, I don't know if Mike is still in there, but hopefully he likes the final result. I think he does. Ah, there he is. There's Mike Smith. He says, looks good. Thank you. Right on, Mike. So as you can see, it got done in time, on schedule. It does happen sometimes. And I'm glad to have it done. I need to sit down and figure out what it's all going to cost. Mike says, I can't wait to play with it. Yeah, I can't wait to get it in your hands. I'm sure it'll be just like the other one. Should weigh the same, should sound the same, should be, the changes we made are so minor, it shouldn't be much different other than perhaps the number and location of video outputs. Is that case big or is Carrie that short? Both. That's both. Carrie, did I put screws in the optical drive? Oh, John caught me. Although the screws aren't entirely necessary, it is my preference to put screws in there. So let's do that. Thank you, John. Sharp eye, John. Now, I want to emphasize that putting the screws in the optical drive is not required. And in fact, putting screws on each side of the optical drive is overkill. But it is my preference to put one screw on each side because the machine is shipping. It just gives me a little more peace of mind that nothing's going to, break free. And it only takes a minute to do this. I just have to find those thin, or rather fine threaded screws that came with the case. That's not them, that's not them. So I want to define preferences versus requirements. So this could have gone out to Mike without the screws in the optical drive, and nobody, in all likelihood, would have absolutely no negative impact and wouldn't even be noticed, even if Mike were to work on it in the future. But it's not the way I prefer to do things. My preference to do this is to use one small fine threaded screw and place it on one side of the optical drive here. And I like to do it to both sides. We've got the screws, why not use them? It's just one screw, and taking the panels off only takes a moment. And I appreciate that you caught me on that because, like I said, it's my preference. And I completely forgot about it. Oops. That's it. When I first put the panel back on, this corner wasn't flush. So I always check the entire line. Sometimes visually it can be a little deceiving. It can be kind of an illusion that it's on when it isn't. And that's the only panel that can be a little bit of a struggle. And laying the case down to put it on makes it so much easier, than trying to do that when the case is upright. But now the other side, that's going to go on super, super easy, as I've already demonstrated, because there's just nothing to block its path. Just a matter of lining up the tabs with the slots on the top and bottom of the panel and sliding it forward for a nice clean. See right there, see how that corner's not in? So we'll pull it back out, make sure that that you've pushed in those tabs that are at the each end and in the middle, so that it ensures that this panel fits completely flush. If you ignore it, if you're like, well, that's good enough, what will happen over time is you will misshapen the case panel and it will remember that shape. Even after 6 months later, you're like, I'm tired of looking at it, I'll straighten it, and you put the tabs in and it still has the warp in it. So it's important you don't let the case sit with the panel on with a bump in it, or that bump will become memorized by the metal and you will have to sort of hit at it with a hammer or be very delicate with metalworking in order to straighten that back out. So I wouldn't delay on that unless you just don't care. But yeah, good sharp eye there in the chat room checking my work. I appreciate that very much. Wasn't that Mitch's job? No, no, it wasn't Mitch's job. Bruce Key says, I just ordered a Mugen 5 to put on my 1700X. I assume it'll be much quieter than my current Wraith Spire cooler. Yeah, for the Spire cooler. Wraith or not, it's definitely quieter. Super easy to put on too. So all the parts used in today's build are listed in the video notes below the video. All the tools and all the equipment you see on camera, all of that's in my Amazon store. That's where I purchased all of it. You can too. And making any purchases using any of the links in my video notes below the video does send a little commission back to the channel here to show your support. It doesn't cost you any more. It doesn't change anything on your side. It's just a little commission that comes back. And certainly it's appreciated when you use those links when you're buying things at Amazon. And of course, my thanks to the folks over at RoboForm. They're going to join me tomorrow. We're going to explore more about RoboForm and how to use it. Simon, I think, is joining me tomorrow. And we'll dig in a little deeper with a lot of people are unfamiliar with password management software. We'll show you some examples, real basic stuff of what RoboForm can do on the basic side. We won't get too advanced. Just to give you the gist of why password management software is so awesome, and we'll demonstrate that. Don wants to know, do you mind me promoting the channel? Of course not. I appreciate if you share links to the videos on your social media sites. It's a great way to show your support. I appreciate that very much. Daniel Pexton says, I just bought some RAM using one of your links at Amazon. Right on, Daniel. I don't know why you weren't blue. I'm sorry, I thought you were blue earlier, Daniel, but you are now, so thank you for that. Mike Smith is taking off. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining me today and watching the final part of your build here. Jacob says, I can't wait to see what you do with that big case. Yeah, me too. I'm really looking forward to this build. I don't have all the parts that's going to go inside of it, but I've got some of them. So, and that's okay because I've got a lot of other projects, as you can tell, in the kitchen. It's looking pretty crowded in here. So I'm going to start getting some of these computers out of here to make room for this guy. He needs space. All right. Thanks, you guys, for joining me. Viable Solution says, are you afraid you're giving away all the tricks of the PC repair and building trade? I've had that question asked a lot to me and to Subaru Mike. Some people think you shouldn't give away what it is you do. I share a different philosophy. There are more computers being produced each and every day than I can work on in my entire lifetime. There's no shortage of computers to work on, and there's no shortage of people to work on them. I want people to come to me because they trust me, that they feel a sense of this person is honest and this person isn't going to take advantage of me. And I think one of the best ways to establish that trust is to just be open and transparent. When you're not open and transparent, which obviously is a choice, you don't have to be, it can lead to some pretty extreme, I don't want to say competition, but some challenges regarding earning people's trust to work on their machines and to suggest why you're worth paying what you charge. I mean, if they're just calling around looking for a tech, they don't know who to call. But yet they've seen my videos and I come off to them as being knowledgeable, and they feel like, well, this guy's been doing this YouTube thing for a number of years. I don't think he's going to steal my computer and not return my call. And I don't think he's going to not fix it. How else can you convey that to a new client? And if somebody is going to fix it themselves with or without your knowledge, they were never going to be your customer anyway. A person of that personality type was not the kind of customer you want. So by letting people and encouraging people to build their own machines, it is empowering people and earning people's trust. And for the people who don't want to build the machines, I'm here and I'm happy to do it. It creates content for the channel. I get paid to do it. And they have a sense of security, a peace of mind that the person building it knows what he's doing and that he isn't going to steal the machine from them or rip them off in any way, that things are not an illusion, and if they choose to do it themselves, they can. But as I mentioned before, most people who choose to do it themselves would have done it themselves regardless. I am not the sole source of information on this. There are plenty of other people, and information should be freely available. I don't like this capitalist mentality that suggests that I was somehow born with this knowledge and that nobody gave it to me, and therefore I won't continue to pay it forward and give it to others. That's pretty messed up thinking. You know, all knowledge should be free. People willing to accept it, that's their problem. I can offer to teach people, but I can't make people interested in wanting to learn. So I'm not worried. There's enough people out there who have no interest and don't care that will keep me in business for the rest of my life. And there are other people out there that appreciate and see value in what I do that would not have, they'd have been uncertain. They'd have been, well, I'm going to have to take this guy on faith. You don't have to take me on faith. Not a fan of faith. There's years and years and years of recorded history here on YouTube alone, plus the books I've written, the radio shows I've hosted, the articles I've written for numerous website publications. And you can Google search me and go all the way back to the early days when more than likely you weren't even on the internet yet, and there's stuff from me. So I have a verifiable history. Yeah, how many people in this industry can say that? And if you can't trust me after all of that, we shouldn't do business together. I don't have a problem with that at all. But at least I'm not just telling you take my word for it, because that's what, other places do. And that's why I do what I do. Traz Rit says, I once had a case with a removable motherboard tray. Do you consider them to be good cases? I don't know. It depends on the case. Sometimes the removable motherboard trays are completely pointless. This case here has a removable motherboard tray. The whole thing comes out, and that's going to make it so much easier to work on because I can just pull the tray and not have to deal with this giant case on my counter. I can work on the tray, get it all set up, and then slide the tray in. When you're dealing with that scale, that's going to be very beneficial. But it doesn't mean it's always beneficial. I don't like absolutes. I don't like this idea that it's always good to have it one way and it's always good or not good to have it another way. It depends on the scenario and the parts that are involved. In some cases, it's a good idea, and in some cases, it's a bad idea or pointless. Have I had many customers, this is Viable Solutions again in the chat. Have I had many customers that followed your guides in your video but made a dog's dinner of their attempt to build their PC? Sometimes people have some challenges. Usually it's because they fast forward through the video or they're not paying close enough attention to the detail. And as long as they stick to it and they slow down, they'll see where their error is and they will correct it and they will learn from that far more than I can ever say in words. So I think it's a benefit when they don't do it right the first time. It's humbling, it makes them slow down, and it makes them pay closer attention. But they've always been able to fix it. Anybody who says I can't fix it and I'm going to take it to a shop, they just gave up. That's a personality issue that has nothing to do with me. John says, I'm looking for the link where my Amazon purchases are associated with funding your show. Any of the Amazon links in my video notes, in any of my videos that perhaps take you to a specific motherboard, let's say, that's all you need to use. Once you're at the Amazon website through my link, that you can then use the Amazon search, or however you normally buy from Amazon, as long as my link took you to Amazon. It doesn't have to take you to a specific product that you want to buy. If you're making a purchase and the source of that purchase was my link that took you to Amazon, right? And now once you're in Amazon, you look at your wish list or you type something in the search and you make a purchase, then I receive a commission for that. So you don't have to have a generic, or specific Amazon link. It's just if my link takes you to Amazon, regardless of where it takes you, once you're there and you go anywhere else, it's still my link that brought you there. If you close the browser and reopen it or open another tab and manually type in Amazon.com, then I don't get the commission. My link has to take you there. What you do when you're there, if you make a purchase, regardless of anything related or unrelated to what I'm talking about, if it's my link that took you to Amazon and any purchase is made or purchases are made from that browser visit, I receive a commission. Yes, the Mugen 5s are back in stock. They will go in and out of stock on a regular basis. I've been doing this now for, I don't know, since January. They'll say there are, Amazon has them available, you order them, or you wait, whatever, and then next week they're not available. Then people freak out, oh my God, they're not available. The week after that, they're available again, and then nobody says anything. The week after that, they're unavailable again, and people freak out. It's so boring to keep watching people behave over and over and over the same way. It's like this weird, unjustifiable panic. Don't worry about it. They're in stock today. They probably will be out of stock in 2 days. I'll tell you right now. So what? They'll come back in stock next week, I'm sure, if not 2 weeks. Relax, it's okay. They're still being made. Right now, there's a big demand on computer parts. It's weird. Relax, it's fine. What part do I need to purchase for the motherboard Wi-Fi on the H370 HD? So on the H370 HD3, I'm using an Intel. You've got to purchase a couple of parts. You've got to purchase the little Wi-Fi card from Intel. You need to purchase the antennas, and you need to purchase the wires that go to the back of the case that connect to the card. So there's 3 parts you have to order to complete that, and I will make a video demonstrating that. Right now, I've got so much on my plate I don't have time, but it is on my list, on my video production list. Would you get the Mugen 5 cooler from the seller on Newegg? I don't know. I don't know who the seller is. If it's selling for under $50, yeah, I would buy it. In most cases, Mugen 5 coolers are being sold by Scythe directly. Even though it may not say that, that's usually who's selling them. If it's being sold at a higher price than $50, then it's not being sold by Scythe. Somebody is padding the amount. Don Melitas says, Carrie, I hope to be back soon as I get rid of my cancer after the operation. Thank you for your work. Don, thank you for all your support. I hope I can keep you entertained here while you're recovering from your surgery, and we will certainly keep you in our thoughts and send positive vibes your way. And I hope you'll tune in with a laptop or a tablet or a phone, and I hope I can keep you distracted and have some content where you can join us in the chat and hang out with us while you're healing and kick that cancer's butt. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up. Quick shout out and thank you to some of the contributors during today's live broadcast, and that includes Don Dixon with a $3 Canadian contribution that just came in. Reverend John O'Toole contributed $5. He said, today I found my second M.2 Intel 660p 2 terabyte drive that was missing all my files and restored from a Seagate drive, but Acronis won't recognize the backup. That's very unusual. I always verify my backups with Acronis. I know we've been through this with the walkthrough I did with Begatin. I always tell Acronis to verify backups. I think that option should be set by default. You can go to Acronis's forums. If you look at the Acronis interview I did with Begatin, there's a link that goes to Reddit, which is essentially support forums at Acronis. And they will answer all of your questions and help you there. But you've got to reach out to them. If they don't know you're having a problem, they're not going to help you. You have to reach out to them. And if you do, I promise they will help you. They will provide you an answer. Matt Powers contributed $2. Thank you, Matt. And Merle Essex with another £2. He says, avuncular as always. Oh, that's a new word. I think it's a good one. Thomas Tidwell and Kenton Morton, thank you guys for your contributions. Abdul Azim Patel, as always, thank you for your continued support. And Glenn's Music, Daniel Pexton, George Z, Steve Warrington, Essential, Working Too Hard, John Young, of course our good friend Madi Yoel, Joseph Hawkins, Roy Sturman, and Farrell Sparky, John Panarelli, Lloyd Hedrick, Rick Hubbard, Dan Lazaro, Chris Kingen, and Hugh Wong. Thanks you guys so much. Your special shout out and appreciation. Of course to John Yasuda, again to Glenn's Music and Paul Carroll, Ryan One Full, and Jim Desposito. Jim gave us the first contribution today, kicking us off. Thank you so much with showing your support, your kindness, not only to myself, but to each other here in this community that we're building, which is absolutely amazing. It's a very unique thing to have here on the internet where so much hatred exists. So I'm glad that birds of a feather can flock together and we can all get along because we choose to. What a concept. I will see you guys all tomorrow. And until then, I got to find my outro. Which one do I want to use today? We'll do this one. Okay. It's a hard decision. My sister's made me so many now. I used to just pick one. Now I can mix it up a bit, keep things fresh. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.